Welcome to the American Institute of Stress's official podcast, Finding Contentment. The goal of this podcast is to highlight new information about stress and stress management techniques. While we understand that stress is a very personalized issue and different for everyone, we hope to help you find your own way to contentment.
Hey, greetings, everyone. Welcome back. This is your host and Executive Director for the American Institute of Stress. It's Will Heckman. Thank you all again for joining us today. I want to remind everybody at the time of this recording, Combat Stress Magazine, our magazine that we publish for free, just came out. So it focuses on not only combat stress, but first responders. So if you know a vet, if you are a vet, if you have a family member who's a first responder, or you yourself are one, make sure to go to stress.org and subscribe to our magazines. They're absolutely free. There are a lot of great information, really compelling articles. So make sure to just hit that subscribe button. Speaking of which, I'm going to do the same thing I always do. I'm going to ask you to, hit that button below there if you're watching this podcast and subscribe and hit the like button. If you do that, you relieve my stress. And you can have a good day just thinking about that. All right, so joining us today, we have Linda Penkala. All right, Linda has over 34 years as a licensed massage therapist in Maryland and a member of the ABMP Professional Association. But Linda tells me her greatest joy, besides being Jima, loving on her 6 grandkids, is to help others connect the dots naturally and embrace health and wellness on the road to longevity, an important topic. And as a wellness catalyst through published articles and giving presentations, offering aromatherapy and massages, and her recent book, The Pause to Relax Ladies for a Robust Heart Health, she finds her heart's passion is to help people relax and be more intentional with lifestyle choices. And she also discovered the fact that heart disease is the #1 stealer of life, both men and women. But when she did some research and she revealed that women surpassed men dying of cardiovascular disease, it became apparent after her own medical atrial fibrillation episode that she needed to get the word out. And her message was delivered in an engaging way by drawing on her years as a jockey and the analogies of both careers by highlighting lessons learned from horses and clients. And then she shares holistic self-care modalities to help reduce stress and find balance. And of course, enjoy your peace. Her book, which I have right here, The Pause to Relax Ladies for Robust Heart Health, which of course you can find where we find everything, on Amazon, where I buy just about everything. Except maybe I should buy stock in Amazon. Anyway, please welcome Linda Penkala. Linda, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thank you, Will.
You know, I ask this question a lot, and because everybody's journey is different. Everybody's journey to find their passion and what they love to do, and I know you have a lot of passion about what you do, is a little bit different than everyone else's. So I wanted to know how you got started and what you do. Your story is a little different than most. Could you tell us about that?
Sure. So I like to say that I use my hands and have used my hands for a living all my life. And it began in New York. I was born and raised in Queens Village, second of 5. And I started my racetrack career at Belmont after a year of being in college. And so I just went there to be a hot walker in between. And so I found my mentor on the side of the track watching thoroughbreds train. And he said, what do you want to do? I said, I'll just be a hot walker. And he said, well, you look small enough to ride. I said, well, that's fine too. So I went to Barn 16 and he was my mentor and he taught me everything I needed to do to learn how to ride racehorses, go down to the farms to break them and go to the racetrack to learn about riding a racehorse. And then I came here to Maryland in 77 to begin my career. And so from there, I ended up being one of the leading female riders here in Maryland. I thank God I'm still alive and then I could talk about it. It's fairly dangerous. I got to go to 1982 to the Ladies' Cup in Japan to compete with other female riders in all over the world. So that was fun. And then I I got married and then I became pregnant and I realized it's a fairly dangerous way to make a living. So when you're a mama, you have to think about those things. So I was in massage therapy school when I was pregnant with my second child, Amanda. So Lance and Amanda, one was, within the horses and the other one was in massage therapy land. But I just like to always say that it's my hands that either asked race horses to run fast, or now I help people calm down, and both of them are just nonverbal ways of communicating. That's all. It's just bringing out the best in a racehorse or bringing out the best in a human being on my table to where they could feel their bodies, at peace.
It's funny because, first of all, I grew up in Brooklyn. I've been to Belmont plenty of times. I've lost plenty of money there. Yep. And yeah, I'm not good at picking on. Maybe I should have asked you. And I think I read somewhere that you also in Ocala, Florida.
Yes.
Well, I've been to Ocala many times. It's beautiful there, and I love it's a big horse country. For those of you who don't know, Ocala is it sort of looks like that show Dallas. Some of the places there, and I was reading all this and I'm thinking, okay, this is a little bit different than how some people get to focus their passion on stress and getting people to be healthy and things like that. But then really I thought about it is, you're right. Your way of working with horses, you can't tell a horse anything. Right. First of all, they won't listen. Second of all,
right.
They're not going to understand you. So using your hands, and if you can get a horse to get their stress levels down, which is a big part of your job, I believe,
right?
You can do it with a person, probably.
So it's about harnessing the best within the horse. You break out of the gate and you have to assess where you are, how fast you're going. And that's a great attribute of a super rider, is to have a good clock in your head. And I mentioned that in chapter 2 of my book, The Pace of the Race. So it's important to know where you are in the race and to just relax the horse. So your whole goal as a jockey, whether you're on a nervous filly or a colt that comes from out of it in the distance race, you just want to relax them in the beginning, all to get to the crescendo at the quarter pole to say, whew, let's go, let's rock and roll.
Right. Sometimes stress makes you productive. So I mean, before that gate opens, your stress levels must be, as high as they can go. But boy, it's just a good way of being excited and being productive. Let's talk about your book a little bit. You mentioned your book. I was looking through it. I haven't read the whole thing yet. I'm sorry. I'm getting to it. I have a pace holder, you can see, but getting there. You talk about 9 pillars of heart disease. Now, heart disease is a very big topic, especially at the American Institute of Stress, because it has been so connected to stress, heart disease, pulmonary cardiovascular problems. Can you tell us how that all works?
Sure. First of all, before I dive into that, is 80% of all cardiovascular disease is preventable. That's what the doctors say and research shows. So my book is all about lifestyle choices. I'm not a doctor, but what I could see is what I've evolved into my learning and my reading, my researching of. It's all about lifestyle. And so what happens, I think it's just about of chemistry. Well, it's hormones, chemistry, and it's that fight, flight, or freeze component of the central nervous system. And so that's 2 components, the sympathetic nervous system, the go, 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 like the accelerator going, and then resetting when you come off of that to go into the parasympathetic nervous system of rest, repair, and digest. What happens is with many people, and the pandemic highlighted that and accentuated that, is people don't have that reset, is you never came back. So you have this incredible amount of cortisol, epinephrine, adrenaline coursing through your body, creating inflammation, creating all kinds of medical problems. And the spigot isn't turned off, I like to say. So I like to say it's kind of like the rusting of your pipes, if you will. And so if you don't have something to pause, to slow down, and to just recalibrate, I like to call it not necessarily self-care, but self-regulation. It's self-regulate, because if you're not regulating your body, then someone else or something else is. It's kind of simple like that.
It's so true. We're a product of our environment a lot of times, both good and bad.
Right.
It's one of the biggest topics also is workplace stress. It's
Yes.
that's we spend a lot of time at work, and if
Yeah.
that's a stressful environment, you're right. We need to have some of those coping mechanisms, some of those self-regulating tools to help us from, I don't know,
Absolutely.
that hose exploding. And I've seen it happen, and I didn't know it was 80%.
Yes,
That's a
and
big number.
Harvard researchers are sharing that there's a strong link between women's job stress and cardiovascular disease. And the
Yeah.
Women's Health Study of over 17,000 women shows the more stress a woman has, they have a 40% more higher risk of cardiovascular disease. That's just from job stress. That's not taking them home, dealing with a kid or two or three or four or five, whatever, and dealing with home life. That's just work stress.
It's been a topic on this podcast many times, and we had a conversation with a young lady who is a doctor, and she pointed out, you think about the stress of being a doctor. You have somebody's life in hands, and it's not what she talked about. I was very surprised that especially women doctors are their stress levels are so high they're leaving the field. So and she explained it to me that you go to medical school, you go to college, you get out of college, you go to post school, you go to medical school, you get out of medical school, you do your residency or internships or whatever you need to do, and then how old are you when you really start at the exact age you want to start having a family?
Right.
Wow. So now the stress levels are even higher because you have to make a serious choice. Now, one of the things that you said when you wrote in your book, that you want to educate and empower women to become more aware how stress and, as you said before, lifestyle choices affect their heart health. And you speak about women and also men's heart attack symptoms and how they differ between the two. And you used a graphic that I saw called PEBS or PEBS.
PEBS.
PEBS. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Tell us about that, because that was very interesting that their symptoms may differ.
Absolutely. So when I created my 9 pillars of heart disease prevention as kind of like a guide for me, because I messed up, I wasn't taking care of my health. And when I got AFib and I needed to have a moment with myself, soul searching, and figure out what went wrong, because the doctor said, Linda, everything's fine. Your heart's good. All the numbers are good. I said, well, then what went wrong? He said, sometimes you just don't know. So he created the 9 pillars because we needed to have some kind of a compass, men and women, but particularly this book's about women, to show us what we need to do. So the 9 pillars of heart disease prevention. And so from that, my research, I saw that women have totally different symptoms than men. And so I needed to show women that there's a simple acronym that we can have, PEB. So P is pain, that we will present coming into a heart attack with pain, jaw pain. It could be either side of the chest pain. It could be arm pain. So it's random. It's not just an elephant on the chest pain. Okay. And then the E is exhaustion. And so women, when they're coming into a heart attack, and these are all things that you really need to remember, you're exhausted. So if women that are listening or seeing this, you know how you felt when you were pregnant. It's even more exhausting than that, like you ran 2 marathons in a row. And it's not normal for you. So that's the other little itty bitty component, is that, gosh, I usually am not this tired. But this goes on and on and on for a while, before your heart eventually says, I can't give you any more pumping. And then something happens. So then the B is breath. So we have a shortness of breath, a labored breath, or we feel lightheaded. So it's PEB. And then the S is sweating and nausea. So we present totally different. Now you could just have 1 symptom or 2, or maybe all 4. But when I just taught recently, and I was the keynote speaker for a conference, this one guy said, Linda, we should do, because it's pretty, can I show the picture of it?
Of course.
Let me see. I had my little doodad there. I'll find it.
That's right. I'll try to include the graphic in YouTube.
Oh, I'll
try.
the graphic.
Okay.
But
you're welcome to.
Okay, let me try to find it. So he said, Linda, we should make rocks with these, so that in my client base they could see PEBS. I was looking at my wrong book here. I was looking at the vagus nerve. PEBS we should put on rocks like I did here.
Right.
So
That's what I saw.
yeah. So it's important, and then men present totally different than that. So but it's good because we have that acronym for a stroke, and some people know that, right? So it's important to know that men or women, and women need to know, here it is, PEBS. So
Awesome.
it's just, 4 rocks,
Mm-hmm.
stones, but it's when you get a pebble in your sandal or shoe, you have to stop to take it out, right? And so when you have these symptoms, my goal is to encourage women to, once you know this, you can't unknow it, right? And so when you have this symptom, you're like, wow, I think I read about that. So stop, take out that pebble from your shoe, or address that symptom, and then go to the ER. Save yourself.
Now, we should mention that one symptom is not necessarily because I've had like 3 out of the 4. Sometimes on the same day, but for different reasons. So it's not always that, but it's definitely something people should pay attention to. You know, and if they remember that acronym PEBS, I think that's a big help.
And the other component too, Will, is that women are very emotional. And so in my research, and why I wrote the book, is that we're totally different than men in that we are so emotional, and our emotions go right to our heart. And if you have a lot of stress at work and at home, that really, really, really plays into that whole sympathetic nervous system loop. If you're chronically on, sympathetic nervous system of, go, 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 and you never turn off, then that your heart is working so much harder. You have higher heart rate, you have higher resting heart rate, you have higher blood pressure, you have everything that's higher because you never take a moment to pause.
And you also talked about, lifestyle choices. And we've, I've read about that before and talked to people about that before. On this show, we've talked to everybody from chefs to personal trainers, and we talk about lifestyle choices. And you mentioned a few of them. And there's a few that, look, nobody's perfect. We all make bad choices. I make a few, and everyone else does. But it doesn't have to be your whole life, right? I mean, you can choose to do something different. And you said, like, a lot of the heart disease is avoidable.
Absolutely, it's totally preventable, and it's all lifestyle. So here are the 9 pillars, if I can just mention them real quick. And these are pillar is, what the foundation is of a building, and this is the foundation of our health so that we could age gracefully. So know your numbers. We all know all that stuff, but the one thing I do want to say, besides, cholesterol, HDL, all that, is your C-reactive protein. And you want to know your HS C-reactive protein, and that's the high sensitivity C-reactive protein, because that's an inflammatory marker. So when you go to get your blood work, you want to be sure your doctor is asking for that, or you say, can I please have that in it? And also your homocysteine level of your protein in your blood. Also assess stress. Of course, we're talking about that here. The burden of toxic relationships and negativity in your life. That negativity is really hard on our hearts, men and women. Also, movement is medicine. That's really powerful. Just move. You don't have to do necessarily 10,000 steps a day. Even 4 is a happy thing. Just get out and move, just 10, 15 minutes a day. Just move. And then stopping smoking, we all know that. Eat and drink heart healthy. That's really important. And to stay hydrated and watch the alcohol. I learned a lot about the alcohol component, because what I learned is that no doctor ever asked me, Linda, were you hydrated when you had AFib? Do you drink enough water? No one asked me that question. They did ask about alcohol, but not hydration. So dehydration plays into heart health and into AFib. And anyone who works in the ER will tell you they have holiday heart every December between Christmas and New Year's Eve, where people drink way too much. They forget to drink water and they get AFib and they end up in the ER. That's just the norm. That's the norm for any ER. Okay, but you have to drink half your body weight in ounces in water. Okay, and a lot of people don't want to do this. Or look at the color of your urine. You don't want it to be really yellow. You want it to be really pale yellow. That's a good indicator there. And anything red, obviously, is easy. So slow down, relax is important, whether it's prayer, meditation, yin yoga, anything like that, obviously massage. And for women, gather with girlfriends. It's so important. We forget how important this is. But when we gather with girlfriends, our cortisol levels come down, our oxytocin level comes up, we laugh, we have a hoot and a holler, we totally joy filled, and you feel different when you're around a lot of women. You do. I was at a luncheon yesterday with Business Women's Networking, and I taught them in 5 minutes 2 breathing techniques. The one for the Navy SEALs, 4-square breathing, box breathing, and I taught them my stim vin breathing. And so those are 2 ways that you could just be with people and do some breath work. And also regular dental cleaning is number 8. So oral health is important because what happens is this inflammation, gum inflammation, or if you don't go to a dentist for cleaning regularly, that all plays in to your heart health. Absolutely. And also use nature to nurture. So go out in the greens, not screens. And there's great research on how powerful being out in nature is for your heart health, for your blood pressure, for your cortisol, just to view greenery or the mountains or the ocean. So important.
Boy, I love that. Go out into the green, not screen. Oh my God.
Yeah, greens, not screens, right?
I may have that put on like my stationery. Being a biker and a birder, I've gone, and you've been in Florida, it's a great place if you want to get out into nature. I've ridden through the Everglades and through Ocala Forest, and, both of those places. So boy, that's a great advice. And you mentioned about breathing, and I know you're a big believer in breath work. And in one of your articles, you wrote about tips for daily living, and you said that the breathing technique you just mentioned, 4-square breathing, is really good. Tell us about that. I am also a big believer in learning breath work, and I'll tell you why. For 2 reasons. One, it's free. I just recently started going back to the gym, which is great. At my age, it's different goals, but it's really, really made me feel better. So, but breathing is free. But number 2, and the most important thing, is it's always with you.
Oh, it's
no equipment,
always with you.
You can do it, nobody could notice. So tell us a little bit about 4-square breathing.
So box breathing or 4-square breathing is taught to the Navy SEALs, and it's taught to them in their training because they want to allow them to have focus, calm, concentration, and to have their nerves not be frayed because they're in incredibly intense situations, right? Not unlike a lot of stress that many, many, many millions of people are right now, right? Well, so what they teach them is you inhale for 4, you pause for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you pause for 4. It's so simple. You could do it while you're sitting on a Zoom. You could do it cooking. You could do it driving. You could do it wherever you are. That's very simple. So do you want to try it right now?
Please.
Okay. So I like to ask people.
I'm feeling nice and relaxed talking to you, but yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, you can feel more relaxed. So uncross your legs. I always say this to people. If you're home, sitting here, listening, watching, uncross your legs, sit up straight, and I'll do the counting. You do the breathing. Okay. So you want to inhale for the count of 4, 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Pause. 2, 3, 4. And that's basically all it is.
Simple.
It's very simple. But if I could share, but if you sat there and did it longer, we might not have time to do it 3, 4, 5 times. But the really big kahuna of breathing, can I show you my stim vin breathing technique?
Yeah.
This is phenomenal. So I take my glasses off because I want you to just understand the vagus nerve, and the greatest book for your health besides my book is Activate Your Vagus Nerve. And I took a vagus nerve summit in 2020 when I was locked in the house, and I learned a lot. And so the vagus nerve is the longest nerve in the body that starts deep in the abdominal cavity, comes all the way through the body, carotid artery, through the voice box to the brain, and ends here at the ears. And that's an important component. You could really help calm yourself down by massaging your ears. But this particular breathing technique that I call stim vin, stimulate your vagus nerve, begins like this. So you put your right hand on your belly and your left hand on your heart, just to remind yourself you're going to breathe into your belly first, then lift up your lungs. Then on the exhale, you go or you could go, now the humming it out allows your vagus nerve that goes through the voice box to become energized, to come back online, if you will. Because what happens to cortisol and the sympathetic nervous system loop is it kind of like a bully on the playground. It squashes down your parasympathetic nervous system. So it comes offline. And so what we have to do is constantly be bringing back online your parasympathetic nervous system through the vagus nerve. So let's do that just once or twice. So it's hard to concentrate on, but you want to breathe in through your nose into your belly, then your lungs, and exhale. Now the next one, I want you to exhale, humming it out. So inhale into the belly and the lungs, and just hum it out. Now, tonight, to help you sleep, is you access your vagus nerve, laying on your pillow face up. You're like this, and you do that breathing technique 5 to 10 times with your finger in your ear or behind your ear. And this allows you to come from the 12th floor all the way down to the basement just in a few minutes. And you just put your fingers in your ear, one finger in your ear, and you do that breathing technique. The first time I did this years ago, well, had my fingers in my client's ear face up. And we did it about 5 times. And I said, so how do you feel? He goes, Linda, I feel like I'm stoned. I was like, really? I was like, serious? He goes, absolutely. I feel so calm and so relaxed. And what I tell people now is there's such a visceral shift in your entire body. Sometimes I lay there when I do it, I almost can't move. Like if someone said fire, I don't know if I want to get up. I am so relaxed. So, instead of a pill, I call this my Valium. Instead of Valium, it's B for breath. It's always with you, like you said. And this is so simple. And you could teach children how to do this too.
And the whole thing about rubbing your ear and stuff like that. A lot of people don't know that there's a whole side of acupuncture called auricular therapy that focuses on points in your ear, and they absolutely work. It helped many people make big improvements in their life, including quitting smoking. So yes, it does work. And it's a very, like you said, simple thing. I think that's a wonderful way to sort of bring this conversation to an end. We can go over those 9 pillars.
We go on for hours.
I know we can. It's really interesting, and it's very applicable because all the things that you mentioned, I get asked about: sleeping, workplace stress, breath work. All those things are things we could learn to take care of, and maybe do some lifestyle changes and just make our life better.
Absolutely.
Going back and exercising, cutting out some of the sugar in my life, just those simple things.
Right.
One thing I do want to say, you mentioned, and I didn't want to interrupt you about the alcohol thing.
Right.
When you drink alcohol, it dehydrates you.
Right.
And if you don't think it does, rub some rubbing alcohol on your hand and blow on it and see it evaporate. Well, that goes on inside you. I don't drink very much. My wife and daughter call me a lightweight, but even the little bit I drink, 2 glasses of wine at dinner, I know that, yes, it can be relaxing. And yes, some people use it as a stress reliever. Great if it works. Just don't forget to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Hydrations. And also caffeine dehydrates you as well. Right. But the other component of alcohol is it doesn't help you sleep. I'm just saying. At all. It's the worst thing you could do for sleep. Absolutely. It makes you might pass out from the alcohol, right. But then you eventually wake up and you're laying there and wondering, why am I awake? Because you drank way too much alcohol.
All right. So I'm going to ask you one question before we go. What is your personal thing to do for stress relief? You're in the moment, feeling stressed, what do you do?
Breathe. Intentional breathing. It's always with me. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have to ask anyone, no matter where I am. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, and let the breath exhale be long so that you're bringing down your heart rate. You have the sense of calm.
Folks, that's the simplest answer, and sometimes the simplest is the best answer. People have been doing it for about 10,000 years. I think we could learn a little bit from people who have used breath work in their life and saying Om and whatever and humming. Linda, I wanted to thank you very much for joining us today. Please look for her book. It's on, I say like everything else, on Amazon. The pause right there. To relax, ladies, for robust health, heart. And this has been great. We learned a lot from you. Thank you for all you're doing to bring awareness to.
Well, I want to thank you and AIS for all that you do. I have quoted Dr. Paul Roche, the founder, and for years and years and years. And I mentioned you guys as a nonprofit and to go check out your Contentment magazine. So I tell people about you guys all the time, but thank you for all you do to help people stress.
We appreciate that. We appreciate that. And I want to remind everyone and to go to stress.org. You can subscribe to those magazines absolutely free. And there's many things we have at stress.org for free, including free courses. So go there. And remember, your support helps us make these podcasts and everything else that we do. So consider joining or donating. And I want to remind everyone, just as stress is different for each of us, there is no one stress reduction or management strategy that is right for everyone. So that means you need to join us next time to find out and explore more stress management strategies and insights. And remember to visit us again at stress.org. And I hope the information that you got from Linda and myself today will help you find contentment. Good day, everyone.
Thank you.